Hello poets, it's Beryl the Feral here again for the Hip Yak Poetry School, and I'm going to talk to you now for a few minutes about learning your poems. So my top piece of advice, if this is something that you find possible, would be to create your poems in your head. That's something that I do, and I know that we don't always have a choice about it, depends on our composition style. But for me, my poems arrive with me when I'm walking in nature or doing a meditative activity or something with rhythm. And then I create my poems line by line, you know, adding the next bit, adding the next bit. And so they're kind of born out of my thoughts and repetition. And then I don't need to go through that process, that extra process of getting them in, implanting them into my brain, because that's where they've come from. And for me, writing them down is often an afterthought. So if that's something that you find possible, that's what I highly recommend. But if you're somebody who works in a notebook and you know, edits and moves things around, shuffles things around, then I can understand it can be really hard to learn where which bit goes. So first of all, there's the technique of writing them down. I'd recommend to write them down by hand, not on computer. If you write them, if you type them on computer, then your poems will always be in the same font with the same spacing, and it can help for them to look a bit unique and individual. So if you're writing them out by hand, you can add different spaces, you can put gaps where pauses might be, you can make ornate letters, just so if you're someone that's slightly visual, you can, in your mind's eye, you can see, oh yeah, that's where that verse ends, or you know, that's where I remember that's the end of a line, or so it can help to actually see the page. And something that helps in all of these techniques actually is to section off your poems. It might sound really obvious, but if you can picture them in verses and choruses, or in like, oh, section 1 begins with this word, and divide them all into smaller sections to learn, that can really help. So yeah, writing them down by hand in a way that you can visualize. Another way is recording them by audio. So you might want to read it out first of all into your MP3 player, in the delivery that you want to emulate, and then just listen and listen again, you know, put it on headphones, put it on in the car. And if you're somebody that works for, like it's singing along to a song on the radio, then that can be a really effective way, is just start to hear it in your mind and be able to preempt the next bit that's coming. Another really obvious way is the way that some people, I know some people learn names this way, is just by putting an image in your mind's eye, putting a picture to what you're saying. So there are places in my poems where I know I sometimes stumble, and I can visualize what I'm saying, what I'm speaking about, but within that picture I implant another image or a symbol or something about what I'm about to speak about. So all the while I'm speaking internally, I'm playing a kind of movie, and the movie's like giving me the hint of the next thing that I'm about to speak about, because in my mind's eye I see both things together. So that's a really helpful tip, and I would say just the places, just figure out the places where you usually stumble, or where you usually forget, because they're often the same, like that somehow your mind has a block about a specific line. And the last thing, if all else fails, is just bringing a cheat sheet. Now, again, would recommend, if you're going on stage and you still have the fear, like there's that place where I always mess up, don't write out the whole poem. You might be pouring through it to try and find the bit. But again, if you've divided your poem into sections, you might know, oh, there's the section that starts with do this, and then there's a section that starts with I have such and such. And so just marking out on your cheat sheet the lines where you always stumble, so giving yourself hints, like it's like having a prompt in a theatre play. It's just the next bit. Those are my top tips for learning your poetry. Good luck. I really hope to see you on stage at some point.